Book Club lovers, it is my pleasure to be joining you live after a brief break last week where we had a pre recorded session. And today we will be doing a book review of the amazing A Family Affair by Nyathi. And this book, this very one I'm holding, is the last copy that was available in Harare this week. And we purchased it so that we could do a giveaway this week. So the details of the giveaway are this. If you share this live and tag 5 friends in the comments, we will do a draw at the end of this week, and the lucky winner will be able to win this book, this amazing book. And let me tell you, it is unput downable, if that's actually a word. And we will deliver it to you. Unfortunately, this competition applies to residents of Zimbabwe only, but we're going to do better next year and be able to do Africa-wide competitions. But this competition, this giveaway, is for Zimbabwe residents only. So, without further ado, A Family Affair. What an interesting read. Um, so, my custom is to start every book club with a quote that I think sums up, the story or the author. And I think the quote I want to start with for today's book review is from Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. And this is the quote. All over the world, girls are raised to make themselves likable, to twist themselves into shapes that suit other people. Please do not twist yourself into shapes to please. Don't do it. If someone likes that version of you that is false and holds back, then they actually just like that twisted shape and not you. And the world is such a gloriously multifaceted, diverse place that there are people in this world who will like you, the real you, as you are. And that is my quote for today's story, because today's story is a story about a family living in Bulawayo during the period of 2000 to about 2009, 2010. And they are a proud Ndebele family, and they are a family of daughters only. And it's a very interesting book. So, what does the synopsis say about this book, A Family Affair? Meet the Mafus, a close knit traditional family with 3 daughters. As leaders of their church, the Kingdom of God, Pastor Abraham and his wife Pumla are guiding the community of Bulawayo in faith while trying to keep the different branches of their family intact. Independent and feisty Xolisa Uliswa returns home after a hiatus abroad, hoping for a fresh start and a chance to steer the family business. Rebellious Yandisa has met the love of her life and is finally getting her act together, while dutiful newlywed Zandile is slowly becoming disillusioned with her happily ever after. The book is split into different parts, which are titled Growth, Maturity, and Decline. And those kind of give you a preview or a prelude into the various arcs of this family's story during this period of time. The Mafus always present a united front, but as their personal lives unravel, devastating secrets are revealed that threaten to tear the family apart. For how long will they be able to hide behind the facade of a picture perfect family? And there we go. That is the synopsis or the summary of the book, A Family Affair. So before we get into the review, if you're watching from Facebook or YouTube, let me know in the comments where you're watching from, and let me know if you've had a chance to read A Family Affair, and what you thought about the book as we continue. So the title, A Family Affair. Whilst reading the book, I found that title had very different meanings. And of course, it is used also differently throughout the book. So first of all, there's the issue around family, which is what exactly is family. I think the book does a lot to unpack that, and does a lot to unpack that from a Zimbabwean perspective, a patriarchal perspective, which is very interesting because in this family that is being examined, it's predominantly female. Also, we think for most of the book, and then affair. That's quite interesting considering some of the issues that are raised in the book and in the life cycle of the family. And there's almost a double entendre on the word affair, you know. And then when you put those words together, family, what is family, and affair, you kind of get the issue around family being exclusive, but also how inclusive can it be? And I suppose this is where we then unpack the secrets behind the picture perfect facade. And so there's definitely an idea around the exclusivity and inclusivity of family and the gap between the facade and the reality. And of course, what we say about family events, which are a big theme throughout the book, a family affair. This is about our family and no more. And what does that look like? What does that look like when people marry into the family? What does that look like when secrets are revealed? What does that actually look like? And what do we mean when we say family? And what do we mean when we say family affair? Does that include some of the illicit affairs that happen within the marriages within a family? So I found the title quite smart and quite interesting. And of course, something that Sue does that's very cool in the book is that she creates almost this intertextuality between the story of the Muffles and the story of the Bennets in Jane Austen's famous book, Pride and Prejudice. And in fact, the first line of this book is a play on the very first line of the book um, called Pride and Prejudice. And it reads this like this: It is a truth universally acknowledged that a single woman of childbearing age must be in want of a husband. And we really look deeply into that statement in this book because that looks different in this time and age. That looks different within the lens of African culture. And that looks different basically during the period of time she's talking about, which is the early 2000s in Zimbabwe, because a lot of the circumstantial or operating environment creates some kinds of tensions and pressures on the book. Not on the book, but on the story and the characters in the book. So I found that very, very interesting. And that play with Jane Austen. So in Pride and Prejudice, Elizabeth has four sisters. In this book, we have Zandile, who is the youngest of the family, and her two sisters. And the book begins, the first section entitled Birth, opens up with Zandile's wedding, which is picture perfect. And through the lens of the first sort of decade of her marriage, which is the present or real time chronology of the book, we get flashbacks into different members of her family and the family dynamics as they are and why they are the way that they are. So, a very interesting use of time and space there. So, what's the narrative point of view? So this book is very interesting for me because it's very difficult to say who the main character is or who the main narrative point of view is. It's clearly spoken of from a third person narrative, or rather from a neutral narrator who is telling us the events, giving us the background story into the past, giving us the story of each of the sisters as they tell their story. But definitely the story is told intermittently or intertwining between Zandile, Yandisa, and Xoliswa. So that is constantly being threaded, and their point of view is what is being narrated to us, but it's not being narrated in first person. Something I did find a bit weird is that sometimes it goes into past, present tense, and present tense, but it wasn't too disturbing. But I did find that that would be something I would be curious to know from Sue why she did that. The story is told through the lens of the different marriages or relationships that these characters have with marriage. So we start with Zandile on her wedding day. And her wedding day, the emotions she goes through are kind of like a window into what her marriage is like and the arc that her marriage goes through. Feeling trapped, but also feeling very seduced and in love with the idea of marriage and in love with the idea of being in love. Then, on the other hand, we have the next marriage or next wedding that we see in the book is Yandisa's wedding. And Yandisa is the middle child. She has middle child problems. She's got middle child tendencies. But when we get into the background of who she is, the decisions she's made, and some of the events that have occurred in her past, we begin to understand maybe some of the challenges she's facing and why she behaves in the way that she is. And she is desperate to get into marriage for the respectability of it, also because of some of the things that she's gone through in her past. So she's almost one of those interesting characters who is playing to a script that's been forced upon her. But we see moments in the book where she is amazingly radiant and amazingly bright. And, she actually is one of my favorite characters, although not always likable. Then we've got the climax of the book, which is their parents, Abraham and Humla's 32nd wedding anniversary, which is kind of like a wedding because they never got to have a white wedding. And we begin to understand why when we hear their backstory, which is kind of told sort of in the middle of the book. And then we've got Koliswa's relationship with marriage, which is um, surprisingly checkered, considering that she's almost like the favorite child, the responsible one. And when we first meet her siblings, refer to her as deputy mother, and we begin to see that there's a lot more to her. She's a high achiever. She's a perfectionist. And she's definitely somebody who's highly functional and very interesting. And so, the fact that the respectability of marriage eludes her for the majority of the books, for pretty much all of the story, is very, very interesting. And the position she then ends up taking in the book in relationship to marriage is also very, very interesting. I find her a very, very interesting character from that point of view. And then something that I love about Nyathi and what she does in her books is that she's really chronicling our contemporary history in Zimbabwe. So as I read it, I kept having flashbacks to the early 2000s, the bricks of cash, the festive sort of boom in the early 2000s, and the rapid decline and hyperinflation, and the forex issues. And there's actually a very interesting statement she makes when she paints a picture of the family during sort of 2006, 2007. And Zandile's husband works in a bank, and he is sort of like the family's pipeline for foreign currency. Yandisa's husband, Wesley, owns a nightclub. He is a pro rugby player who has returned home and is trying to make a go of it with some local businesses. And, he's a problematic figure with some challenges of his own. And he opens up a car business selling secondhand Japanese cars, and it also sells black market fuel. And the two of these characters have these interesting sort of backdoor deals. And back then in Zimbabwe, we often used to call a lot of these black market trades called the parallel market, because a lot of it was about getting or securing foreign currency, which would secure the value of the money at the time. And this really interesting statement that is made in the book when they're describing the relationship of how Wesley would get his money from Ndaba, and how Ndaba had his Waposteri women selling forex in the black market. And, Wesley was doing the same, selling his black market fuel. And how it was almost like this small little cartel forming through the family bonds, obviously, because they're married to sisters in the same family. And the statement is this: none of it was ethical, but that was how they all survived. Parallel lives and parallel lies. And I found that very astute and very interesting, and also very Jane Austen-esque, considering the way that Sue started the book and the tone of voice in her narration, which almost is a mimicry of the way that Jane Austen would write about women and marriage and societal issues. But that's the only similarity. This story is quite different to Pride and Prejudice in terms of it does unpack societal discriminations, but it's also quite raunchy. It also uncovers a lot of the sordidness and unveils a lot of the hidden toxicity in the institution of marriage as it is described in this book. And so just a nod to Sue there for her contemporary take on modern history. Now, just to remind you that we are doing a giveaway of this book. So please, if you share this live and tag 5 of your friends to this live in the comments, we will do a draw and you can get this book at the end of the week. We will deliver it to you. It is a Zimbabwe only draw. So you have to be from Zimbabwe to be able to get it, but this is the book. And we'll be running it today and tomorrow and parts of Friday morning. We'll do the draw at noon And so you do have time, even if you watch this in retrospect. We're being quite nice and giving you a lot of time to do that. So we're looking forward to that draw and to giving this beautiful book away. It's definitely worth the read and definitely very interesting and very well written. Now, just to get into the themes of this book, first of all, is marriage. So, a lot of the family affairs, in terms of when we speak of a family affair being an event that is specifically for family, are around marriages. There is a one particular funeral that has gone into in the book. And it's a very interesting and pivotal moment in the book because it sort of triggers one of the climaxes. It sort of triggers one of the big revelations that happens at the climax of the 32nd wedding anniversary for Abraham and Pumla. But marriages are the big family affairs or events, if we want to use the pun of family affair on events. But also marriages are also the other side of a family affair in terms of the affair or illicit affairs that happen within these marriages and in these families. And in the beginning, Susan Tombi, who is Abraham's eldest youngest sister, and who's obviously what we would say in Shona culture, the tete of, Zandile, before she takes her for her rites of initiation into the Kumalo family, has a big talk with her, or what she calls the talk about marriage. And she basically says, men will cheat. You must turn a blind eye. You are the first wife. It will be okay. And basically, always be ready to give your husband sex. All of the things that women have been taught at kitchen teas and cultural roundtables around women in a patriarchal society about how marriage is about the man's needs. And at the end of it, what is made very clear is much like the first statement of the book, the ring is the trophy. That's what Nyathi says, the ring is the trophy. And then through the voice of one of the most tragic characters in the book, I think, we then hear an answering echo, to not an answering echo, but an answer to that statement, um, through Yandisa when she says, the ring is a sham. So the ring is the trophy and the ring is the sham. And it doesn't matter the difference in personality of the three girls. Zandile is kind of like a princess character. She's always like, why didn't I get that? Why didn't dad choose me to be in the family business? Why didn't you do a baby shower like this for me? Right? So typical youngest born or last born trauma there. Yandisa's wild child, always looking for a drink, always ready for a party, irreverent, especially regarding all of the sacred cows. But there's a deep yearning and a deep need to be accepted and to belong in her family. And Kolisa, as I said earlier, is the deputy mother. So you've got very striking different personalities. And what we learn about all of these girls is that they're very enterprising, industrious girls in the book. Throughout that period, in different pictures, we begin to see that they're able to be productive, they're able to make money in their own way and use and mine their talents and giftings. But this relational aspect that they have with marriage is sometimes, in most cases, a hindrance and an obstacle to them taking root. And of course, different characters deal with that in different ways, and in some ways redeeming. But largely, it's not a positive story in terms of the relationship that men have. And what's very interesting, though, about this issue around the desire and the respectability of marriage, the crisis of expectation of marriage, the questions around, do all men cheat? The cost of the respectability of marriage. What are people prepared to endure and go through to keep that veneer of respectability of marriage? And the inability of people to leave marriages that are toxic, that are in repetitive cycles of abuse, violence, infidelity, manipulation, and control is very, very interesting because these girls are seemingly brought up under the facade of being very well educated, very spoiled, very much privileged. And even when their relatives say to their parents, oh, these girls, you should have had boys, or don't you want to try for boys? The mother says something very interesting when she's like, Z is the last letter of the alphabet, referring to her youngest daughter, Zandile, and there is no need for boys in this family. So they almost seem to be very proud of, being strong females. And of course, we start to rethink that statement later on in the book in terms of what is revealed at her 32nd wedding anniversary. Then and I think the issue around marriage and all of these questions around marriage, um, and do we normalize infidelity in marriage, especially when we talk to Black men and we say all men cheat, and the roles that are prescribed in marriage, especially when we consider the lens of Susan Tombi's talk, but all of her counsel throughout the book and the role she plays in all of the different relationships. And, she's an interesting character because at some point you start to think to yourself, is this a friend or is this a foe? You know what I'm saying? So it's very, very interesting, Susan Tombi's lens. But there's a pivotal moment in the book where Zandile is being celebrated at her birthday party at a restaurant called La Gondolia. And she has her sisters, she has her mom and her uh, father's sisters there, so her two aunts, and she has her in laws. So she's not only got her husband's sister there, she's also got her sisters in law from all of her husband's brothers, all of her husband's brothers, including his cousins, there at her party. And they have this very interesting conversation about marriage, the expectations, the crisis of the expectations, the respectability, and also the expectations around men and their role. And obviously, different characters, because they're at different points in their relationships, good or bad, respond very interestingly in that conversation. And it sort of reminds me of a lot of the conversations you hear on social media or that you have with friends when you go out about this thing that we call marriage, about the relationship between men and women and our expectations, and sometimes even our lack of expectations around, men and women and their role in marriage. Then the other theme is obviously that I thought was quite striking is absentee fathers. So the girl's father, Abraham, we soon discover is an absent father, but he's an absent father in the typical way, but he's also an absent father to Yandisa. And he only ever actually truly owns up to this on her wedding day when he makes this moving speech about how he saw himself in her. And this is why he struggled to connect with her and have a relationship with her, because he would always be brought to anger and frustration. So I found that very, very interesting. The Babalwa, who is the sort of I don't know how to describe her without giving it away, because when I discovered her origins, I was quite shocked. But Babalwa, who's the other child in this relationship, or the youngest of Pumla and Abraham's children, is very interesting because she also has an interesting story around her fatherhood, and the fathers in her life are very interesting because Abraham is the father that she knows up until a certain point, and then she then has a goes in search of her real father, and then she also has a very toxic and problematic relationship with her stepfather, which leads to all kind of tragedy later on in the book. And then we've got Owami and Keith. Owami being Xoliswa's child, first child out of wedlock, to a married man. Keith, of course, she didn't know he was married, and it's very interesting, that dynamic, because Keith, in a sense, is almost a mirror to her father when we find out the big family secret. And her being the most successful of the children, the perfectionist, almost the most proper of the children, it's very interesting that she would find herself in that position and be a single mother, especially considering that her parents run a church. So that's a very, 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 very interesting theme of absentee fathers. And then the other thing is the issue around toxic feuds. So Susan Tombi, when you hear of her and her character, she's true to form, and she's one of the characters that doesn't really get much of a redemption. She's pretty much rigid almost. She's always and often at the center of a lot of the drama and conflict in the book. Um, and so she's very, very interesting. She's often at the revelation of big secrets, and often picks the worst timing in the world for the revelation of secrets, revelations around Babalwa, and to the wrong person at the wrong time, revelations about Abraham to the wrong person at the wrong time. And of course, when we start to unpack some of the reasons as to why, we also see that her relationship, or her marriage to the Brigadier Ben or Uncle Ben has its sort of pressures and challenges. And perhaps this is all that she knows. This is all that she's capable. And these are the only tools she can give the next generation. So it's very, very interesting there. But also connected to toxic feuds is the interference of family. So we've got Ndaba's mother, who ironically is called Selina, who is quite stern and disapproving. But there's a moment when we truly see her. At the moment where the crisis in Zandile and Ndaba's relationship is sort of abating, where we truly see a mother's heart and she is endearing. And in that moment, she's also endearing to Zandile, who for most of the marriage has not really felt warm feelings towards this woman. There's also Wesley's mother, Mama Nyoni, who is very much not an interferer, very accepting. And this is not what you would expect from, a woman of this background. She's very understanding. And it's interesting that it's under her care. And when Yandisa is actually staying with her, that we see the most growth and the most positivity in Yandisa's story. And then, of course, Susan Tombi's interference in terms of in her role in the family. She's supposed to counsel the nieces, but she's not often the best source of wisdom. She's not often giving practical advice that works. So that's very, very, in essence, the interference of family and how toxic it can be. But also, I think Sue's done a very good job through those three matriarchs to be able to show us different pictures of what that interference can be driven by and how some things can appear to be negative but come from a good place, and how people can surprise you, but how also sometimes it can be toxic. So very, very interesting there. Let me know what you think of Susan Tombi. Is she a friend or a foe? How would you rate her and her role in the book and how she drives events in the books? And then the last theme I want to just quickly touch on is the issue of generational cycles. And this is often seen through the theme of infidelity in marriage. So the affair pun in terms of the A Family Affair title of the book. And it's very interesting to me that these affairs which are illicit, which are secret, which birth other secrets, are repeated in the lives of the next generation of the people who did them. So infidelity is definitely a cycle that we see from Abraham to Xoliswa, definitely, and Zandile from different perspectives. We see infidelity across most of the males in the book. Pretty much it's hard to find a man who doesn't have a story of infidelity in the book. So that's quite disturbing and quite interesting. But I think how Sue helps us to get through that is she does give this very rich picture in the debate the girls have on Zandile's birthday about the question that I think is a very societal and topical one, which is, do all men cheat? So the book really unpacks a lot of issues around family, a lot of issues around the respectability of family, a lot of issues around the bedrock of family, which is marriage, and what that looks like societally and through the dominant cultures of the society. So traditional culture, through time and history. So the flashback into Abraham and Humla's marriage gives us definitely that historical backdrop. And then also through the culture of the mega church, and what that was looking and morphing like and evolving into through the provocations of many of the challenges and the circumstances around the economy during the period of the 2000s. And in all of that, they are rich contrasts, rich juxtapositions, which I think highlight the truth of family, which is that I think family is a place where there's an element in which the lies that we keep for family um, highlight the love that we have for each other and family. And it's a very odd thing to say, but you can almost trace the texture of a family and its connections through the secrets and the lies that family is willing to keep to preserve its facade, or to keep something going for a particular period of time. Now, it's up to you to decide whether or not those lies and secrets are necessary. Personally, I think that the book does a very good job of showing us the toxicity behind those secrets, but I think it also very much is a good mirror of the fact that a family is a place where we turn a blind eye to a lot of things knowingly. And it's obviously the place where the worst kept secrets are found in society. So that would be my review of A Family Affair. If you want my recommendation, read it. It'll make you think. If you are a Zimbabwean and you read it, it will also give you a very nice walk down memory lane. So just to remind you all again, we're having a giveaway of this book. Okay, please share the live. If you share the live and tag 5 friends in the comments, you will enter the draw for the book, and we will be making that draw at the end of the week on Friday at lunchtime, and we'll be posting the winner on Friday at lunchtime. It's been a great book club, and I've had a great time reading this book. I hope you read it. If you are outside of the country, you can get a very reasonable copy on Amazon Kindle, or you can order a print on demand copy on Amazon Kindle. If you would like one and you're based in South Africa, take a look at Sunyati's website, sunyati.co.za, and she has the list of distributors and retail outlets where her book is available. Definitely give it a read. It is raunchy, it's saucy, it won't be boring, and it'll definitely make you think about your own family. It'll definitely make you think about our modern day culture. And like I said, if you're Zimbabwean, it will definitely give you a walk down memory lane. So that's me, Selina Zigomo. It's been great having this book club with you. Next week, we will be having a live interview with an author from Kenya. We're very excited about this, and we'll be preparing for December, letting you know what our top 5 for December will be. So we're looking forward to seeing you, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Don't forget the giveaway. Tag 5 friends in the comments and share this live, and you will stand a chance to win a copy of this amazing book, and we'll deliver it to you. All entries from Zimbabwe are valid. Thank you very much. Good night.